Calvin Ridley Calvin Ridley to the Tennessee Titans on a 4-year, $92 million deal, $50 million guaranteed. And the whole story out about this right now is the Titans didn't want to pay AJ Brown 4 years and $100 million, so they traded him during the NFL draft at just 24 years old for a first and a third round pick. But then they turn around and pay Calvin Ridley, who is 5 years older at 29. He's going to turn actually 30 this season while you're rendering the first year of his services. This was under the previous GM, for the record, with the Tennessee Titans. There was a reason that that previous GM was booted out, and they brought in the new front office staff. They brought in the new general manager to make sure that that didn't happen again. Calvin Ridley is a very good receiver. AJ Brown, I think we would all sit here and say, is a better receiver than Calvin Ridley. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, but the production of AJ Brown has been immense, at least at today's point in the NFL, because we saw 2 whole years with no Calvin Ridley because of the gambling suspension. Again, he came back season long 2022 suspension for violating the NFL's gambling policy. But in his first year and unfortunately only year with Trevor Lawrence, he caught 70 passes for 1,016 yards, 8 touchdowns for the Jags in 2023. And again, that was that was after not playing for 2 years, 23 months technically. So the Titans have now went from no consistently good pass catchers slash pass catching production. Now they have DeAndre Hopkins. Now they have Calvin Ridley. And they struggled really to find wide receivers after that A.J. Brown trade until DeAndre Hopkins came in. The Titans have had just 5 1,000-yard receivers in the last 10 years. They've had some close ones, like with Corey Davis coming up and at the tight end position as well, with, maybe 800 or 900 yards receiving on the year. And it's not to say that they didn't have a solid passing attack or explosive plays or a very solid offense at the time. The year that they went to the NFC Championship, they were an explosive offense. They were up there in terms of yards per play. Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Mike Vrabel and Arthur Smith were making things happen. And now Will Levis will have these guys at his disposal. The passing offenses over the last few years have been okay for Tennessee ever since that AFC Championship year. Really, a couple years after that, they were able to stay in that hot bubble, but we've seen it cool down. Ryan Tannehill lost his magic. They're drafting Malik Willis. They're drafting Will Levis, really wondering, dealing with a lot of injuries. I think they had over 90 different starting lineups in the year that Mike Vrabel, was able to secure the 1 seed for the Titans, which is just really crazy to think about, because whenever the injury bug gets you, you're going to be down and sometimes you're out. But now Will Levis has, in year 2, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyjae Spears. The Titans brought in Brian Callahan as the head coach bringing in Brian Callahan, who was the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, it's definitely possible for Calvin Ridley to have 1,000-yard season here, have the type of production that he did in Atlanta when he was playing so solid. And then, the Jaguars go in, scoop him up for, I think it was a 6th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. What's up, Wesley? Tuning in for the Calvin Ridley news. Yeah, man, y'all got him on a big pickup, $50 million guaranteed, not too much. The guaranteed money and how they spread the money out over the years is really what you want to be curious about when it comes to dissecting these these moves and everything. But Will Levis having some nice weapons now in year 2. Tony Pollard, he's shown that he can be the running back 1 and definitely a solid running back 2. Calvin Ridley, we saw what he did in Atlanta. You see what he's capable of over in Jacksonville. DeAndre Hopkins, he was very good in year 1, over 1,000 yards. Tyjae Spears, a running back that I really wanted in the NFL draft, and then the Titans go and scoop him up. Now, again, of course, you have Tony Pollard as well. Very good head coaching situation, or it's believed to be a very good head coaching situation. So let's not stay caught up on the whole fact that the Titans didn't want to pay AJ Brown the 4 years for $100 million. That was under a different GM. Yes, they're paying a guy who's going to turn 30 years old this year, a slightly smaller deal, but essentially still the same, just $2 million less a year. Don't know if the specifics, actually iron out like that, but Calvin Ridley is going to be pretty solid in this offense. I think if Will Levis is able to make use of him and, he's able to get schemed up correctly. If, Calvin Ridley, is able to be schemed up correctly, I think he'll have a very solid season. First time in franchise history to have 2 1,000-yard receivers. Yeah, I was just thinking that too. I think it could definitely be one of those situations to where, like, They could do that. They really could do that. They could go in and have that season to where they've got 2 1,000 yard receivers. And anytime that you're like that, your offense is always going to be on top of things. Your offense is going to be one of the best in the NFL to compete with. So Calvin Ridley to the Titans here. Again, I think it's a solid move. Maybe I would have liked him seeing to go to other places, but the deal is done, and it's going to be interesting to see how things play out as the season goes on and he works out this 4 year $92 million deal.